Okay, cool. Glad I messed that up on me and not Justin or Jake. Okay, cool. So we got the loader. And from the loader, we can return whatever we want. We can say, hi, remix, meetup. And then down here, we can say use loader data. We can use TypeScript to say type of, and then if you just give it the loader, then we can see in here, we got that value of hi, and it will be a string probably. Yeah. So we can pass whatever we want from the loader. This is running purely on our server. It can do whatever we want. We can send whatever we want, basically, as long as it's like JSON string or JSON parsable, and then we can pull it out. So what we want is we want to show TOS banner, right? We don't want to say hi remix meetup. We want to show the TOS banner. Yeah, and we want to get that here. So we're going to say show TOS banner. Cool. Now we can see that that's working. And if we change this, it goes away. Perfect. Okay. So what do we want to do next? We want to hook that up to the actual cookie, right? So the first thing that we're going to do, well, we need to pull out from the loader. You get some loader args. That's just a type coming from Remix. And here we can pull out a context or the params or the request, which what we want in this case is we want the request. And what we're going to say is we're going to say request.headers. And here you can just get the cookie headers. That's what we want, right? And we're going to call this cookie header, very original. So with the cookie header, we want to pull out specifically the term of service cookie that we had or that we created earlier. So we're going to say const cookie, and this will equal, yes, I think it's an await. Is it TOS banner cookie? What did I call it? Cookie banner? Yeah. And then here we need to parse out the cookie header. So basically we're passing in the cookie header to this. And this term of service cookie banner that we created earlier knows how to parse from this value, the specific stuff that we want. So we got that cookie. And then what we're going to do is, for now, let's just console log this and see what happens. So let me give myself a good message. We'll say the cookie console log driven development. That's how I roll. All right. Actually, it's not going to be in that console. It's going to be in the server. So if I give this a refresh, you can see the cookie is null because we haven't actually set the cookie. This is was maybe a little bit confusing to me at first, just trying to think about how these two things work. Here, we're creating basically a cookie handler. I don't know, maybe is the right way to put it. We haven't actually signed the cookie or rather we haven't attached it to the header in any way. So we actually have to set it on the header somehow. And we can do that directly from the loader. So we're going to have some logic. We're going to say first, if the cookie exists, we're going to return, and here we're just going to return show TOS banner. For now, we'll say true. That's obviously not right. And it shouldn't just be return. It should be, oops, JSON. You need to wrap everything in JSON. At least that's the preferred way to do it because that's how you can make sure it's all serialized and you pass headers correctly and stuff. Okay, cool. And then that blew up because I don't have the else case. So in the else case, we're going to return JSON and then show TOS banner. Here we'll show it as true. So in this case, it really should be true because if the cookie doesn't exist, that means that this is their first time there, and it means that they haven't seen the TOS banner. So we do want to show the TOS banner. Okay, next thing we can add is we can add headers. And then here we want to say, I believe it's set cookie. Checking my notes, yep. And then here we're going to use that TOS banner cookie. Oops. TOS cookie banner. Here, instead of parse, we're going to do a serialize. And we're going to serialize the value. So here I could just do show TOS banner like I've been doing, but I'm actually going to use date that TOS was read. So this is basically when the term of services were read. So in this situation, I'm actually going to say 0, which might seem a little bit like a weird date to read something. First of all, I'm using the actual numbers. I'm not using ISO strings or whatever. You could use whatever you want. You just can't use you can't use new date because this needs to be JSON serializable, and that's not. I think if you try to do that, it'll just automatically turn it into value of anyway. So I'm basically just using the value. And the reason I'm saying 0 is because I'm saying, okay, when the user loads this for the first time, let's just pretend as if they read the term of services at the dawn of time or 1970 or whenever the 0 at end JavaScript is. I can't remember. So basically, yeah, they read it at the dawn of time. So anything later than that is going to be a new term of services, and that will trigger the logic to show the term of service banner. Okay, so cool. So we'll set that, and then this should you define the loader route, but you didn't return anything. I think I did. Return JSON, return JSON. Let's restart this. Good old live debugging. think it's still mad at me. Unexpected export.
I'm just gonna curly brace at the end of the loader. Line 42.
Thanks. I knew it was gonna be something silly. Perfect. Thank you. I think that was Justin. Sounded like your voice.
That was me.
Sweet. Awesome. There you go. That's what friends are for. Cool. Okay. So now we got it working. So we can actually see that this worked. If we go into application, you can go and see that there's a TOS banner cookie. If we just clear that and refresh, we'll see that it gets recreated. It gets reset. So that's great. That's exactly what we want. It's getting set. Now, the only thing that we have left to do is when we click accept, we want to change this date TOS red to the current date. And then we want to use that to compare whether or not to show the TOS banner. So first, let's actually add it. So we're going to go into the TOS banner and see what do we have. Well, down here, we got a button, and that's our accept button, right? So we want to do like on click, right? No, this is Remix. We don't use on click. If you're unfamiliar, this is the old way of doing things, and we don't really need to do that. Remix is all about using the platform and using specifically forms. Oh man, I can't spell. There we go. Forms, and using those to mutate, manipulate data. In this situation, I'm not actually going to use form. I'm going to use a nice little helper that Remix gives us. It's a hook actually. So it's called, I'll call it fetcher, and it's use fetcher. I'll explain why I'm using this in a second because it may not seem super intuitive at the moment, but it's easier to show once I actually have the example built up. So we'll do fetcher.form, delete that. Cool, let's close this down here. Okay, and we need a method, which will be post because this isn't a get method, it's a post method. We're actually changing data. And then also the action, which should go to a specific place. Here, I'm just going to say hide TOS banner. So this is a route I'm going to create, and that's where the action will be sent to. I don't really need any other data because I'm just going to assume whenever you click accept, we're just setting the date on that cookie, right? So let me grab this guy because that's what we're going to create next. Inside a route, we'll create this .tsx, and we're going to export async function action. So before I made a loader, this is, oops, sorry about that. This is a very Remix thing, loaders and actions. So loaders are the way that you get data. Actions is the way that you essentially change data. So here you do have to return something from your actions, I'm pretty sure. So we're just going to return nothing because we don't really need anything. And then again, we're going to do the headers and then set cookie. And so it's, what is it? Await TOS cookie banner dot, again, we'll serialize it. And then what did I say it was? I said date TOS red. So here we're just going to set it as, I think you can do date dot now. We'll just give you the number that you want. So we're going to set the date as whatever right now is. Okay, cool. So if we actually click accept, it didn't work yet. That hopefully went off. I can add an action in here, or sorry, I log in here and say action, and we'll open up this. If I click accept, the cookie, I see a post to it. I don't know why the console log's not getting sent.
It's there. Yep.
Oh, it is. Okay, cool. See, just my bad eyes. There we go. So it is getting sent, which is great. Why is this not working? Well, we didn't complete our logic. I'm just saying show TOS banner true all the time here. That's not what I want. I want cookie dot, I keep forgetting what I call it, date TOS red. And then we're going to say basically if this is, if we've read it before, I think, wait, yeah, I always get this wrong. I think it's if we read it before the date, like this date, then we should show it, right? Yeah, but if we haven't read it, yeah, I think that's the logic. Anyway, we're just gonna add it. So we'll say last updated date. This is coming from TOS banner. So I'm just setting it here, 7-11. We can change this to something later to make sure it works. So we're saying if the date TOS red is less than the last updated date, then don't show it. So we're gonna save that. Cool, it's gone. Let's go through the flow again. So we're gonna delete that, refresh, it's there, click accept, it's gone. Now to really confirm what's today, I don't even know. It's like it's the 28th, right? Okay, so we're gonna say the 29th. There, it showed up, which is great. We're going to say the 27th, and it's gone because we read it on the 28th, and that's later than the date that the last term of service were updated. So there you go, cookie-driven TOS banners, super easy. There's a couple little tips and tricks and further things we could do to make this a little bit nicer. One thing I did want to point out was I kind of alluded to this. Why did I use this use fetcher? Well, I'm going to change this really fast to just a raw, or like the form capital F form that Remix gives you. And we'll see why this was not ideal. So we can go ahead and refresh this. Let me delete this one. So if I click accept, it's actually going to take me to that hide TOS banner, which is not what I want. You can do replace equals true. That's like another way to get around that, and then it'll replace the URL. There's all sorts of ways to do that, but basically by default, like forms will automatically navigate you to a different URL. But if you use the use fetcher hook, then it won't do that, and that's kind of nice. So it feels more like your normal, like just sending a request to a specific place, but you still get the nice form API. So that's why I use the fetcher. But yeah, that's basically it. So I'll leave it there for any questions. Yeah, sorry, any questions? Cool, it seems like no questions. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing, and we'll let Justin make his way up. Y'all's claps are so quiet on my side. It was very, very funny to me.
Okay, golf clap.
I like pity claps.
Claps, I like it. Cool. All right. I may not do as much coding as Brooks did, but I might cheat a little bit more than he did. He seemed to have nice notes, but my notes are an already completed version and an uncompleted version. So that's what I'm going to do. But basically, what I'll show you is a little bit Cloudflare, a little bit Remix. So what I have is this website here that is my website, one of my websites. And I originally built it without a contact form. So what I did originally is I hacked this together in like a couple hours, and then I had a redirect to a different website that actually had a form on it to like a completely different domain. And so I thought to myself that it'd be cool to have an actual contact form, which is a pretty common thing to have on a website. So I basically followed the Remix tutorial on how to build a like a form, like just like a regular little contact form, and built myself a little contact form in Remix. And then I decided to myself that I wanted to make it a little bit easier because I don't want to have to go set up a whole bunch of stuff for mailing and sign up for third-party accounts and all kinds of silly stuff like that. I was like, so what's the fastest way that I can do this? And the fastest way to do that was with Cloudflare, because I was already using Cloudflare. My whole website is already hosted on Cloudflare Workers, which Remix makes really easy to do, which was a different talk I gave a little bit about that. So Cloudflare has two features in it, which I'll just briefly overview really fast, that make that pretty cool. They have this feature called email routing, which allows you to basically, they will intake all of your emails, and then on the back end, they'll fan it out and send it to different places, which makes it really ridiculously simple. Since they already own my domain DNS and have all the settings for mailing, it's pretty much, it took me about 3 clicks to set this up. And now I can accept emails at my domain without having to sign up for something extra, which was kind of cool. So that's one thing that it does. And then another thing is there's this this other service called, where is it called here? It is called mailchannels.net. They have an integration with Cloudflare, but they are an email sender. So Cloudflare allows me to accept emails and then fan it out to wherever I want, like my personal email address. And MailChannels allows me to send emails as my domain, whatever my domain is, but I don't have to configure anything. I basically just run their code and put this one little thing in this, what's called an SPF record. Don't worry if you know don't know what that is, you can ask later. But basically this record is to authenticate that they're allowed to send emails on my behalf. So all I had to do is add this one little line here, and now I can send emails from Remix without having to configure a whole bunch of crazy stuff in a serverless environment with no long running processes. So I can do this from Cloudflare Workers, and I didn't have to sign up for mail channels. So this, and I originally did this, the longest part of this was actually the Remix code, because setting up the rest of this was actually pretty simple. And now I have working emails and a working form. So I'll take you through kind of the overall what I did here. Basically, like I mentioned, we'll be building this form here in a second. So that's basically what we're gonna do. We're gonna build this form in Remix, and I'm gonna show you how we'll submit it. It'll look very similar to some of the actions and whatnot that Brooks was showing. And then basically I'll show you what the action actually does to send the email in the Cloudflare environment. So what you'll need for this is, if we go into my actual, where is it? So he was showing before importing from, I believe he was using Remix Node or Remix Run like base one. He was saying, he blazed through it really quick when Brooks was talking to me, saying you can import from other places depending on what you're trying to do. So this is the integration that Cloudflare has with their platform so that you can run it in a serverless environment. It's not actually running in standard Node.js. So my whole project imports from Remix Run / Cloudflare. They also have support for other different things like that. So that's just one thing to remember, but it doesn't change my code at all, which is one of the great things about Remix in general is that I can write the same code. It looks like all the same code, but it runs in a completely different environment. So it's kind of cool in general. So what I did here is if we come down and look at my my actual original page here, let me get my routes and open up. So I have my index route here, which again is that page. I don't have this running because I'm not gonna have time to mess around with that for a second. Maybe I can. Well, let's see if I can get it running here. I was not as prepared as Brooks was, unfortunately. So let's see if I can quickly run this. So I have the cheating one that's already finished running. Let's see if this runs and I can get the live reload going for you guys. Keep having an issue with my node version. Yeah, so hopefully it'll run real quick and it actually, we can see it live. Get rid of that version, stop showing you the cheating version again. Here we go. There we go. All right, so this is what my website originally looked like when I first built it. And you see I just had this button here. And this is what it looks like when we're done. It's a little kind of an ugly form, but it's okay. I was time pressed, so don't judge me on that, please. So anyway, so basically, if we come in here, that's the completed version again. If we come in here, you can see basically at this point in the code, we have just basically a link that goes to another website, which is my main website. And what we're going to do is replace that with some HTML to actually do this. So what I've done in the other version, I'm just going to kind of show some before and after here, is I've created an actual React component called contact form, and I just replaced that with that. And so what we'll do is we'll talk about what contact form actually does inside of it. So in here, we have, again, just some hooks that are provided by Remix. One of them has to do with when the page is actually redirecting after you submit a form, like Brooks was talking about. He did it where it didn't redirect. Mine does redirect. So while it's redirecting, you have access to some information about that as you're transitioning from one page to the next. So you can do things like disable the form, or you can actually show different text or show like a spinner or whatever you want to do whenever it's actually submitting the form and it hasn't gone and finished yet. So in here, I have this form that I've created. It's just a basic form. As he was showing, we like to use forms in Remix. Once again, the method is post. And then we have a page called thank you. Pretty standard practice, depending on the site, but redirects you to a thank you page. Says, thanks for contacting us, basically. And here we have what's called a field set. If you're not familiar with that, it just wraps around all of the form fields, and so that you can disable them or do other things to them as a set of things, rather than having to put disable on each individual form input. Like input here, I've got another input down here. Just two pieces, and then like a submit button. So it makes it easier. I can actually use that transition state and say, as I'm actually submitting the form, I'm going to disable all the fields so that you can't keep typing and trying to submit the form again. I don't want to have any double submissions or anything like that. So the rest of this is just basic HTML, nothing fancy here. Again, this is actually in the Remix docs, this entire component. It's not this exact component. I cleaned it up a little bit, but it's basically this component, which is just showing you how to make a form, how to do things like showing errors and stuff like that, which I'll walk through because if you haven't seen it, it's pretty interesting. The other interesting part is this use action data here. So the use action data actually is related to what Brooks was showing with the actual action. When you return that JSON from the action, you can see, you can display different things. And one thing you can do that I have on my form here is I can return some errors. So if we submit something and it actually has errors, that can come, you can return those errors back, validating things on the server side. So say if it's an invalid email, or they try to place I don't know, let's say like a SQL query into my form or something, I can go ahead and say you shouldn't do that, that's bad news. And I can show some errors. Usually this would be used for stuff like fields missing and stuff like that. You could validate this on the client side as well, and you can add some more fancy stuff, but this kind of shows you that what we're doing here is checking to see if there's any information coming back. If there's some errors, then I show right below the field, I show, hey, there was a problem with the name you entered for whatever reason, or the same thing with the email. I have email field, same thing, right below it. It's just a little block that says if there's any errors, go ahead and show that. This actually has a bug in it, but just ignore that for now. That's supposed to say email, not description, but I obviously didn't test my form too much. Anyways, it was a very fast form that I put together, but that was the beauty of Remix. You can do something real quick and get it done. Lastly, again, here's that transition state again, so that when we're in the middle of submitting, the button changes from the word submit to submitting with 3 little dots to let you know something's happening. We could add all kinds of fancy stuff in here. We could add some, cool icons. We could make it spin around and, look pretty and all that good stuff. But I kept it simple. I literally just copy pasted most of this and changed it up out of the Remix docs, which are, as Brooks mentioned, very good. And then if you're not familiar with it, this is just Tailwind syntax, Tailwind CSS. So you can see right there, the nice little editor lets me know what color the button's going to be here. So that's kind of cool to have that as well. So I said I was going to live code this, but I don't think I am, because I don't think I'm going to have enough time. So I think instead I'm just going to keep walking you guys through this. And again, that all of this does is end up creating this form here. That's what all of that code does. With some error messages, they'll show up on the bottom and show up on the top, and it's just a regular standard Remix form. So basically, once where the magic happens is in the action, which is on the thank you page. So as Brooks showed, I have a route that I've created called thank you, which is just the HTML part is very simple. It says, thank you for submitting your contact information. We'll get back to you soon. And that's all. That's all the HTML that's showed. There's nothing dynamic, nothing fancy. And then we have one little helper function up at the top. And then we have an action, which again is the same thing. We get access to the request object. And from that request object is where we actually grab the form data. So this is built into Remix. We grab the form data using this request.form data here. And that gives us an object that represents all of the data that was submitted in the form. So every single field in that form, the name and the email are the only 2 I have, will be inside of this object that's being returned here. And again, I need to learn how to make my nightlight not turn on in the middle of talks. This always happens every time I give a talk. I'm terrible at remembering that. Your eyes aren't going bad. I just am bad at remembering to do that. Okay, so I'm going to show you now. Every time it's just calling me out. Anyways, this is the fancy part. So what we'll do is let's see where we got. So 2 things. One thing, we have this redirect function, which will be important in a second. Again, noting that it comes from Cloudflare, and the same thing from the action function. So even though this is these are shared kind of across the different Remix runtimes, these are being imported from Cloudflare. So all of this action code is basically the magic is in what the guys at the Remix team have actually put together, and gals, I'm sure, to kind of take care of this. So in here, once we get that form data, we're using just a standard built-in request object, which is nothing crazy fancy. So we're going to use our request object here to make a new request to the mail channels API. So this is actually on the mail channels. There's a blog post about it. You can copy paste the same code. That's literally all I did was copy paste this. This isn't anything super special, but this is how you send a request to mail channels. If you do this from the context of a Cloudflare app running in Cloudflare workers, it will just work. Basically, you don't literally have to do anything. I don't have an account with them. I don't have to do anything. The caveat is that they say they have really good spam detection. So if your app goes rogue, they're going to disable you and won't let you keep sending stuff. But it just makes it really nice, because usually you have to sign up for some sort of mail sending service like SendGrid or who knows, whatever else, Mailgun. And that was always a real pain if you're setting up a new domain or a new site. If you have to do all that stuff from scratch, it can take a while. This makes it super fast. So basically, I can just break this down really quick. Like, again, we're doing a post method. This is just because that's how their API accepts it. They're expecting a JSON body, and then we're sending in the JSON to say it. So basically, What is it sending the email to? It's sending to info@remixdevs.com, and it is sending from no reply at remixdevs.com. And basically it's saying the subject is new form submission, and then it has test message content, and it says get email body from form data. That's my little helper function. Remember that form data is what comes from Remix automatically. So when we come up to the top here, this is just a fancy little function that actually GitHub Copilot wrote for me, which was kind of fun. I know Brooks doesn't like to have GitHub Copilot in meetups that I heard him talk about before, but I wrote the name of this function and it wrote the body for me, which was kind of cool. So that was neat. So basically, all this does is break this into multiple lines. So it basically says email, value, name, value, and puts each one on a new line and then returns that string. It's a big string that has that with new lines in it. And so basically it just says test message content, new line, all my fields, and that's it. It sends me an email with that. So over here, again, we're awaiting the fetching that actual sending that request. There's the request object, and now we actually fetch with that request object inside of there to actually send it out to that mail channels API. And then from that, I get the text of the response and I console log it. That's just for fun. That's on the server side, basically. And then I use that special function we talked about earlier, redirect, to actually redirect to the thank you page. I actually don't know that I need that per se, but I added it anyways for the fun of it. So the server will tell the client to redirect, but I think that might actually be handled by, maybe Brooks can correct me. I think that might actually be handled by Remix automatically, but if it's not, point is you can decide to redirect other pages. So like you could, for instance, redirect to thank you and then redirect to, I don't know, thank you again or whatever you want to at that point. So if you return that from here, what's up?
Is there any redirection to like hash-based routing or, you know, that kind of thing? You know, redirect it, hash-based routing, have like client-side redirect, or is it just going to redirect?
This is the server-side redirect.
Yeah, so you're not able to tell the client to do a nice, pretty.
So I think you can, but that would be on the front end side. I think it's like, that's why I was saying, I think it's already handled for me. I just added this extra. I don't think I needed to. So I didn't spend a lot of time with this.
So you're saying you could redirect like to the thank you page and then also have after a certain amount of time redirect like back to the home page?
Yeah, you can do anything. Basically, no, not a certain amount of time. This is literally what the server returns.
Okay.
So the server is returning a redirect status code back to the browser, and the browser will get that status code and say, oh, cool, redirect again. But I don't think I needed to do that.
Okay.
I think I actually did that wrong. But anyways, cool function nonetheless to know about, that you can control all the redirect codes from the server side. So that's basically it when it comes to the actual Remix code. Like that's the whole thing right there. And then, like I said, it took me a couple clicks in Cloudflare. The hardest part was that SPF record I told you about, because I was getting spam. It was like saying, oh, you can't send this, blah, blah, blah. I just had to authorize them to send mail on my behalf by doing that. That wasn't in the documentation. That one took me some digging on GitHub. But now you can learn from my pain and have the cheat code, which is that SPF record. So this is it running on the live website, the actual domain here. So let's say, Remix Meetup, and then our email is going to be, I don't know, whatever, hello@hello.com. Let's just do that. I don't have a lot of validation in here. So basically, we'll submit that. Thank you for submitting your contact information. We'll be back to you soon. And am I sharing my whole screen? I think I am, right? All right. Well, please don't stare too much at my email, but I have it. There it is. So that's good. So there we go, right? There's that form submission. You actually can see, yeah, there we go, right? That's all it was. And so this is actually this email. So again, if you want to look at, let's look at the flow one more time. What am I doing on time? Am I like over? I was just going to show one little thing. So the flow is basically, we got the front end form, and it goes to a Cloudflare worker action at thanks/you or thanks/you. Send email with mail channels. Then it goes to Cloudflare email router, and then the Cloudflare email router sends to Justin's personal email. So that's the flow that you end up seeing that's actually happening. And again, it was pretty simple to set all this up. It took me about 20 minutes. And that was mainly because I didn't know how to do that SPF record. So it was pretty simple. So I would highly recommend this for if you just want to get like a quick site up and going and you have a domain you want to use. It takes like a few minutes to get it going. So that's about it. Unless you have any other questions. So
Does the email sending only work when you send it, or like when it's hosted on your domain?
yes. Yeah, it has to be on Cloudflare for the email sending to work. It doesn't work local machine if that's what you're asking.
I guess besides being on Cloudflare, does it also have to be behind your domain, or how else would they know that it's coming from your domain and I'm not just hosting this site?
So that's the SPF record. So basically, they can't send email on my behalf unless there's a DNS record called this SPF record.
I guess what would stop me from hosting a domain, hosting a site on Cloudflare that uses your domain?
That's this record right here. So without this in here, so this is my domain DNS for remixdevs.com. So if you go look up my DNS settings right here, if I don't have mail channels in there, so like it won't.
If I tried to send from your domain.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to do that because my domain is on Cloudflare. It's
So it has to
their
be behind
integration.
your domain
Yeah,
where
it's
the
like
request goes.
Cloudflare has to host my DNS. And then Mail Channels knows that because it's hosted on my DNS and that record is there, then they're allowed to send mail. That's the magic behind the scenes that they've integrated with Cloudflare.
Okay,
So
that's
if it's
what
not on my domain, like if the worker is not running on remixdevs.com, yeah, there you go. Sorry, I misunderstood the question at first,
No,
but yeah,
it's
it's a combination of both. But yeah, basically because it's running on the Remix Devs hosted by Cloudflare.
Yeah, I was just making sure it wasn't like, if you have that, now anyone could send as you.
No,
It's also has to be
yeah.
posted behind
The
your-
work, because in here, if you go under, where is it? My workers, my worker right here is running under this account. So if I go under manage workers, where is it? Remix Devs right here, right? So Remix Devs is running under this same account, which is what I own that domain. So you can't actually send it without it being owned by that domain. And also in here, you can set up.
So it doesn't work when running locally, right?
Correct. Does not run. It does not run locally at all. But if you go under deployment, where is it? I have to remember. I set this up. There it is. Triggers. All right, there it is. Under here, this is the custom domain, and Cloudflare validates this. So they make sure that you own the domain before they'll tie it to your worker. So this is actually, I'm pretty sure how they're doing it to now answer it the proper way. Because Cloudflare has to validate that. So when they read, they're running in the worker context and they see that, they'll see that it says remixdevs.com and then they'll know that that is proper. So it's some sort of black magic on the back end for them. I don't know exactly how they set it up. You have to ask one of them, but they didn't really say. They're like, here, just do this and it works. So I was like, cool.
The other magic is that it's free through Cloudflare, because if you go to Mail Channels and look for their starter plan, it's $80 a month.
Oh, that is.
What's up?
Is it easy to add like a CC or anything when you're sending that email?
Yeah. You just change this stuff over here. I don't know actually what all they support. You'd have to look at their documentation here for the Mail Channels API. But I mean, I was able to set a bunch of different things, right? So it just depends on what their API supports. But I'm sure they should be able to support everything. Anybody else? All good? Cool. All right. There you go.
Thanks, Justin.
Problem.
I
Brooks,
hope
did
I
they-
didn't give you too hard a time.
Brooks, did the applause seem louder or quieter?
It seemed about the same. Mine was quiet. Mine was a fake one. I'm sorry. I didn't want to applaud myself. I don't know. It just felt weird. I do want to address one quick thing. Grant, I heard you asking the question about the redirect and if it's like server only or client only. So basically, Justin's right. It is from the server. So you do get like a 304, whatever. You get that status code that you want. However, assuming you have JavaScript enabled and loaded and everything, you're still going to get the SPA experience, the client-side rendering experience. So you actually get both.
Nice. Yeah, that's what I was kind of hoping for. Especially if you could somehow use that, hook in that use transition to be able to have like a nice little page transition, fade in, fade out, or whatever it is. Yeah,
Exactly.
nice.
Okay, so this is a really ambitious talk. I've never done it live. just coded it this week. So we're gonna have fun with it. It's a headless e-commerce with Medusa and Remix. But also Remix, Medusa, Tailwind, NX, Monorepo, Postgres, Docker. So wish me luck. Yeah, I'm Jake. I work with Jared and another co-founder at Lambda Curry, and we started a small agency about 3 years ago. This is our team and our families, and yeah, just really fun group of guys and supporting family members. And if you want to learn more about us, we're happy to talk later. But yeah, let's dive in because we got a lot to do. If you want I don't know, is there a way to send this in the chat?
I can do it for you real quick.
Someone's buying us dinner, is that right?
Yeah, Lambda Curry sounds like really delicious.
So yeah, that is our goal, is to as quickly as possible get a product page with search and add to cart functionality up and running. So at any time, if you have questions, feel free to just jump in. I'm going to try to talk about things as I go along. I have some helper functions I'm not going to dive too deep into, but all of the code is in here. So it should be good to do. So I'm going to start off by cloning, which is crazy. But that's how we're going to get started. So we clone and say you're starting from scratch, we're cloning this down. And we want to go through all these steps. We're just going to do it as fast as we can. Starting with creating a new NX workspace. So why am I doing an NX workspace? NX is a great monorepo tool. So we'll call this Remix Austin. And what it does, it has like cloud features so that you can like distribute, I don't know, lots of fancy things across different computing. If you want to learn more about that, they have tons of resources and videos. But what we're doing right now is setting up a Remix project within NX. They have already a plugin. So it's going to set up a workspace for us with Remix already ready to go. Should be really fast, but hopefully my internet comes through. Otherwise, I'll have to switch over.
You're connected to the Eastside Tech Hub.
Yeah, I mean, it should have been a lot faster. It took a minute. Okay. So now we have a repository set up with our NX workspace here. So as you can see, it's set up. Is this the new one? Set up apt, has a libs directory, getting us all. I'm not going to sign into GitHub Copilot, so Brooks doesn't get mad at me. So what it allows us to do here is to get started really quickly. I think it even has a way for me to run this command. So let's go look at our project.json for the Remix thing. Oh no, we needed to add this. So we're going to add a target here. And what this is doing is it's setting up a way for us to run our Remix command under this serve target. So now I can come in here. Oh, is it not running? Basically, we can get started by I can do like NX run serve, and it's, what do we call it? Remix Austin. Oh, UI Remix. I thought I just initialized a workspace. Oh, that's what's happening. It's another nested thing. So and it wants me to, has a different syntax. So we're going to run UI Remix serve. And then that'll run our Remix app like so. So easy way to get started. You don't have to mess with a bunch of things, and you have a big mono repo set up already ready to go. And so what that kind of helps you do is you can build libraries and things like that. So we're gonna get started by adding a bunch of things that we need to get Medusa CLI set up in Medusa. So I realized that I wished I had kind of combined all of these, but there's not too many of them. So what we're doing is we're installing Medusa node and a Medusa CLI.
What is Medusa?
That's a great question. So it is the platform that manages all of the APIs for our e-commerce store. And I'll be a lot more clear how we're using that here shortly. But it has everything we need. I don't know, Jared can probably even dive even deeper into what all it has, but like your cart setups, your store APIs, payment methods. Yeah, it has
this e-commerce API really back in. So
So we're going to use NX here to set up a new node application for our API. And what this is going to allow us to do is have it all set up within NX. And have it ready to go so that we can run Medusa. So I'm going to go into my project JSON to copy and paste these. So I'm just basically setting up all of the commands that I will need to run here shortly. And now, if I run all of my serve targets, so now I have two projects in here, right? I have an, oh shoot. We need to actually install Medusa. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the Medusa CLI to install Medusa, and then I'm going to kind of merge the folders because I wanted an NX node app with Medusa, and they don't have an application for that in NX yet. So you'll see how I kind of do this.
PR is welcome.
Right, so if anybody wants to create an NX plugin for Medusa, that would actually probably be helpful. Right, so I don't need, so basically all I have to do here, I made a copy folder. This is the Medusa side. I don't need the TS config. And then I think all I have to do is copy it over and replace, let's see if I did this right, replace the source folder. And now I should have my Medusa app ready to go. So if I did all that right, here's the magic. I should be able to run both of these applications at the same time. Just to kind of dive into this command, it's just an NX command that will run multiple projects in parallel based off of the commands I set up in the project.jsons. So getting pretty complex. It's a lot to dive into, but it's a really powerful tool if you're going to be setting up like a larger ecosystem of projects together, like an e-commerce store. So while that's working, we can kind of go to the next step, I think. So we want to generate a library for our components to show how that works. Oh, okay, you can see it worked. So we have a server port on localhost 9000 that's running with our store, and then somewhere should be our localhost 3002. But we'll come back to that. So I want to generate a library for my components. And it was as simple as running a command. There's also like a VS Code extension that helps you run all of these commands. So let's create a new component. Oh, first I need helper functions. Okay.
By the way, did I see that's running happy underneath as the web server in your output?
Medusa might be locally. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, there's,
That's awesome.
a lot under the hood for
Instead of
Medusa.
Express or some of the other common ones.
And then, so we have our component library here that we just generated. That's the wrong one. Why does it do that? So we have our component library here that I just generated. We want to go to source, lib, and then what do we want to do? We want to add kind of our helper functions to prices.ts. So I'll make a new file. And what this is going to allow us to do is, oh, I don't even know if I installed Lodash. It's going to allow us to set up prices from like, I don't know, typically you want to keep your prices at 0 cents or like cents amounts. And so it'll help us convert it to dollar signs and show it on the front end. So that's pretty simple. I don't know if I installed Lodash or not, but we'll just keep that. In there. And then from here, we'll just export it in the index.ts. Just to have it available. And then we're going to create our product item. So this is going to be our main component that we create. And we'll use this. Yikes. Oh. We'll use this. I don't know why it's getting all the red, but hopefully that'll get fixed. It's not. Oh,
it's
It's not
TSX.
TSX, sorry.
Okay. That's a lot better anyway. Oh, I know why. So in our TS config, there's all sorts of things like this. I think it wanted like to have like JSX. I don't know, something like that maybe. And maybe it'll fix it later. But this will be something that we can iterate through our product items, and it'll show our product list in a nice little card with Tailwind. So that'll be nice. Let's also export it from here. Here we go. Yep, there we go. So now let's add our Medusa client. And this is how we're going to connect our Remix app to our Medusa. So we're going to install that in the root. I don't use my term anymore. And then we're going to make a util folder, I guess. I would normally make like another util lib, but at the same time, we'll keep it with our components. But our prices might be too, but we're gonna make one for the Medusa client here. That does not need to be TSX. So what this does is it utilizes new Medusa. You pass in the URL. So for us, it's just gonna be localhost 9000 that we saw earlier that was up and running. And this is gonna be the way that we can interface with Medusa to get product lists. Hopefully we can get to that pretty quick. And we will export it from here too, just so we can use these later. Okay, so now let's replace our index route in Remix. And hopefully we can have a product list showing already. One thing to note is that I changed this to a different project name. So let's see if I can get this working. nxconfig has a way that you can import things from within other projects using this kind of syntax here. So I don't have to like do my .. to like go and grab files everywhere. So there should be a way for me to set this up. in the import path, and I thought I did that correctly already. But TS
config base.json.
see it's there, but
Because it's in the lib directory. It's because it's nested in a lib directory in the components, I think. So inside of the source directory, you added another, I think, lib directory.
there's a index file there.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
So let's walk through this code and see if we can get it running. This TS config might need it too. So this might be what I need here. So let's do add demo / components. And then the because TS configs, like they will copy in from bases, but sometimes if you override paths like this, you need to make sure you do it everywhere.
Yeah, you do have it in the.
These configs, this would just be so this might be up 1, 2, 3, and then libs / components. 2. If I can't, there we go. I was about to say, if I can get that working, that'd be sad. I'll have to do the dots, but that was great. Okay, so I had to add this in my root TS config, and that's just a bunch of TypeScript stuff. So now I can get the paths imported from this component. My other app, so you can see kind of how you can build a big network of applications together in a pretty quick fashion with an X. So one thing that is annoying, and I have not talked to Medusa about this yet. I don't know if there's anyone from Medusa on the call, but they do have like private types in here for like before insert and certain things. So we will have some red things that I haven't quite solved with them yet. But if we run this with our, oh, I didn't set up the serve mini one. Let's do that real quick. So inside of this, we want to set up our package JSON so that we can run these easier. So this has all the commands that I need. In various projects. So let's also run package JSON. These. And see if it runs all of them now. So now you can see it's running dev for 2 projects. Initialize this. We have a package.j package lock problem because we're using yarn. Is it running? There we go. Okay, that was actually not too bad. So we have a list of products in here that is from a seed set. So this is just their default seed set. It's all Medusa themed stuff. Obviously, it's not very pretty yet. We haven't set up Tailwind. We can show how to do that with Remix. So getting more into the how to set up like Tailwind with Remix code is pretty simple. So let's do that. So we're going to add all the things that we need for Tailwind. And I know Justin was using Tailwind in his project too. So these are all the dependencies. And you'll notice we're actually installing with NX, we're actually installing everything on the top level. So it's smart enough to like know what dependencies fall into the lower projects or the sub projects. So that's one cool thing. You don't have to necessarily worry about what dependencies go where. You can, everybody shares the same dependencies on the top level. So what we want to do now is initiate Tailwind CSS within our UI remix. So I'm going to CD into there, apps, UI remix. We're going to initiate that project there. So I created a Tailwind config for us. And NX actually provides a fancy glob pattern creator for Tailwind config that creates all of the needed content components. So if we're pulling in from our libraries, our other libraries, it'll automatically get those class names for us. So it's a pretty fancy way of doing it, but it's a helper function that will like do the dependency mapping for you, get all the class names you need, and output the correct Tailwind config. I don't know if I copied all this over, but this is, so these are scripts that are pretty easy to read. All it does is runs Tailwind CSS as I set it up and outputs the Tailwind file for us. So in order to do that, I do need to make my initial Tailwind CSS so it knows where to pull it from, which I believe I just do it here, new folder. So I tell it to look for this file and create an output file, and that's what we're going to link to Remix. So every time we start up, it's going to regenerate a new CSS file, and we're going to add it to our Remix app by utilizing the Remix links. So in our root.tsx, this is our first Remix. Good, finally got here. We're going to import our styles from Tailwind CSS. So if you notice, I don't have a Tailwind CSS in this directory here. It's going to get auto-generated for me. And actually, because of that, you probably want to like hide it, I think, from your gitignore so that any generated files don't get added. But I don't want to do it in the subdirectory, so I'm not going to worry about it right now. But if it works, we should be able to restart, see our Tailwind file get generated for us. Oops, I need to go up. I'm going to start both of them again. So if we did this correctly, we can see this generated Tailwind file with all of our class names that we have from our other library, from within our current app, all kind of merged together and then included in a style sheet in our Remix app. So it should look much better now. Pretty cool. Okay, how are we doing on time? 7:37. I will understand if anybody needs to take a bathroom break or leave, but we're gonna power through this because it's kind of, we're at least getting something to show up on the screen here, so that's fine. Okay, now for the last two steps, so we got search and we got add to cart functionality we're gonna try to do. So this was gonna be a lot easier, but the Medusa team decided to start with SQLite in their demo, like in their first initiation. But SQLite doesn't work with their search API that uses iLike. So I realized then we had to go to Postgres. And so thankfully, my friend Derek is really smart and helped me get all that set up. But first, let's add an input component and class names, and I can talk about that if you haven't used class names. It's a great way to kind of combine class names in your components. Not that I even use that here, but let's do input.tsx and make sure I export it from my. So now we have an input component. We are going to we'll set up the form here, and so we can see it, and we can see it not work too, which was a lot of fun for me. It's like, come on.
Why does case sensitivity matter?
Where are you talking about?
You said you needed.
I like,
Great question. So, the way that Medusa set up their queries uses iLike, that's all in their client. And so I wasn't gonna go into their code and worry about that. So SQLite doesn't have iLike. And so I was getting this error, like, we can't use iLike, and that's why. So that's why when I had to switch over to Postgres. So I'm gonna try to do that super quickly. So let's go to index file. And we can walk through this code here shortly. Let's see, did I add a input?
Operation. That's raw operation. Yeah, it's like a operator statement. I thought it said that it's a different database called like I was like, I don't know what that's like. Something else.
Okay, so I had an input. So if I try to search for something, it's gonna get mad at me. That's when I don't end up make stuff. So let's try to, as quickly as we can, SQLize, or I guess Postgresalize this project. So what I need to do is I'm going to go into my API Medusa project. And I'm going to add an environment file.
Sorry, it's already going.
Huh?
It already has one.
Oh, okay, thanks. And these are our URLs that we have. The Postgres URL we're going to set up in a Redis URL. So these are all things that Medusa needs to get started. And we have a Docker compose file that sets up Postgres, sets up our Redis, and gets that all started for us. So all of this is on the repo if you want to get copied and pasted and started on this. To replace their default, wait. Did they already provide that? They might have already provided that for me. Cool. And then I
Copied that from somewhere else. That's what we copied over.
oh, did I do that? Okay, so we're going to make sure in our config file for Remix, for Medusa config, that our database name is correct too, because I kind of, when I was doing this, didn't just use database URL. If you're working in a big project, you might have multiple databases. So I just specified it's the Medusa database here. I didn't have to do that for the demo, but that's what we did in our project. So I wanted to be kind of true to that. Derek built this fancy script here that all it does is initializes the database inside of our Docker container. So, oops. I want a new folder with dev and a new file called Postgres and init.sh. And then we can update our module exports in our Medusa config. Because you can see where it sets the database and SQLite here. So we're going to update this to use our Redis URL, our database URL, and all that from the environment variables we just set up. So this is just telling Medusa everything that we need to get started. I think we set these up already. Let's see.
API Medusa.
Yeah, okay. So this sets up our all of the scripts that we need to run our application. And then we'll see if it works. I might need to run a command to get it to work, but here is my first init script. And what this is doing, no configuration file found. Okay. Oh, I put this in the wrong spot. I believe this is supposed to be in the top one. Okay, let's try that.
Will it read your environment variable from within a project or your environment, like your .env file from within? Yeah, Medusa app. Does that need to be top level too, the .env file?
Okay, so it says load build definition from Docker file. I have Docker running, right?
Did you move your Docker file up?
Well, I don't know if we need it. This is in API Medusa. I might just switch over.
Oh, yeah,
This is a pain.
it should be in Medusa, you're right.
Somebody sees what's not set here. I'm gonna blame the HEB Wi-Fi and say that they're not letting me get a Docker file. No.
Do you need a hotspot?
No,
Okay.
that's fine. I'm gonna switch over. And then we can just talk about what I did. Okay, so imagine we got that Docker file to run. You run the first init, it seeds the database for you. And then you have your products all still in here. So, I mean, it looks the same as it did before. Now it's just running in Postgres. And so what we can do now, because we're running in Postgres, is run our search. And if I go to, this is the final project. So let's finish up by talking about how that works and actually how we got it set up in here. And I kind of break it down better in the steps in the README if you want to go through that later. But let's walk through this code because it's pretty cool. So as we saw earlier, and we set up our input component. And all that we've done here basically is set up an on change. So you were talking about how you don't need to use on click, but on a search, if we want to do it kind of in real time and have it give you new products as you're typing, we can set up an on change that uses the use fetcher and loads data kind of in real time as you're typing. So we use this on change to submit a product search. And so what this product search function is doing is actually looking at the URL, getting the search params and updating them as I type. So you can kind of see that happen. So if you're watching the URL, you can see the term update as I type. So that's pretty cool. If I delete everything, I have code in there that just deletes the term and gets me back to my base URL. So what that allows me to do is I can actually deep link into a search term if I want to. You can kind of share those as well. If we look at the code for the loader, it's getting the search param from the request that gets passed in from Remix. So Remix passes you the request, you can get the URL params from it. And then I'm just passing it along to a query to Medusa. So Medusa client makes it really easy for me to query the search term and then just provides me the products back. And so this is nice because if I wanted to just search for t-shirt, I can do that. Or if I wanted to search for a mug, I can do that. Okay, but I'm having to refresh right now, and I don't want to have to do that. So we're gonna do the last little bit of refreshing code. I thought I had that down, but kind of good that I didn't here. And then I also debounce it. So let's add that. Oh, this is actually working in my new one. So I don't know what happened. This over. And then now, what's happening is I'm actually debouncing my search and saving it in state. So I added this function called use debounce callback from just a random helper, a highly rated one on NPM. And what that allows me to do is instead of like replacing things as I type and making a bunch of function calls, it'll actually let me type for 200 milliseconds and then run the updated search. And it feels a lot more natural that way. So what I'm having to do, because it is kind of loading in real time, is that, and as you saw earlier, I had to refresh to get the new state. As I get a new product search data, I'm setting it to my state so that it'll re-render when I get that new data. Especially since it's debounced. So if I did this correctly.
Is it also canceling the previous HTTP requests? Or is it
No,
just
it's
debouncing the
streaming
handler
new,
itself?
yeah, just
Okay.
streaming new data.
I think Remix might do that automatically if it's using the HTTP.
If you're using the request.
Yeah.
If you're using the fetcher, I think it would, yeah.
Brooks says, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, just use fetcher and make the calls from there, and they'll automatically cancel.
Nice.
Card context.
All right, we're gonna skip ahead to the cart if I can get this working. No matching export in app root.
Do you just add export to your cart costs that you have defined?
No, I need to copy this state over. This is our app root here. Okay. Skip over to the server because I want to show you kind of how that works too, and then we'll be done. So what this is wanting from me, I believe, is a cart.server.ts. And so what this is doing is creating a cart ID for me and a new cart within Medusa every time I go to the page, and then saving it in a create cookie, very much like we saw earlier. And then we can use that same cart in the app. But I gotta get rid of this error.
Yeah, you're not exporting a cart context from your root file.
Just gotta
Yeah,
export.
that's what I was talking about. You missed an export.
Okay. It's only work from this project here. So root is the cart context even here? No. So let me copy this over again. Okay.
They also have the same file over there.
Yeah,
Or is that?
this is a nice MacBook. I don't know why it does this. Okay, there. Okay. So what I've done here, and we can look at it real fast, is in the product item that we have, we added another form to, oh, this is in the in our index file. We added a product add product to cart form that just posts the product ID and the cart ID to our action here. And so instead of using the loader, which is what we're using for search, we can use the action now that we're posting, and we can use the same client to retrieve a product and then add it to the cart. So we're retrieving a product by the product ID, and then we're adding it to the cart. If I did this all correctly, you can see that I am adding a ton of products to my cart, and it just updates automatically from the Medusa client. So kind of taking all of the concepts that we learned earlier with the forms, merging it into a full e-commerce platform. Okay, are there any questions? I know that was kind of a lot, and I had to go through it really quickly. It's probably better for like an hour where I get to like dive in deeper, but
I did post some links in the chat to like NS for mono repos. If you've ever used Lerna, I actually don't know the differences between the two, but somebody does. I posted a link to Medusa as an open source e-commerce client in the Zoom chat. Maybe one or two other links in there. It's better. All right. I believe you. Lerna's given me some pain in the past, but
so yeah, all of this code is on the repo too. So feel free to.
yeah, that GitHub link is also in there. If you'll scroll up in this, scroll up in the Zoom chat, you can do the same thing.
This big takeaway is just don't use SQLite and just go straight for Postgres.
Out of curiosity, so the folks who've talked about cookies today, how hard is it to use local storage with Remix?
So Remix has different ways to have storage sessions. And I think setting up a local storage might be one of them. I didn't, so early on in this project, I was thinking about using like a CMS like Sanity, or we were using Directus, which is kind of similar. And what it is interesting is it actually has a way to have your own session connection to a CMS. So it has a helper that you can set up functions to update data, write data, delete data, and you set up those like 3 helper functions. And so instead of using a cookie, you can use like a session in a remote CMS. And I assume you could do it in local storage, although there might be some front end that needs to be managing that too. But
Sometimes local storage gets a little weird if you're like in a private tab or an incognito tab, if I remember right, but it's been years since I've run up against that, so I don't remember.
But setting that up with the CMS, that was one of my original ideas is like, okay, I would need the cart. So I'm gonna like save my cart session. And the cookie ended up being way easier, but you are able to like have pretty complicated interactions with other CMSs using their kind of synchronized session storage functions.
And I guess you could shop when you're not logged in and then later create an account and log in and then you still got your card, you didn't lose it.
Yeah, this
That kind of
actually,
thing.
doesn't. Yeah, you don't need to be logged in. It's just an ID based cart system. So yeah.
Recording in progress.
DJ getting set up.
In a remix.
Yeah. If you get a chance, pull it down, see if you can get it working too. I would start with the finish state and then, so that way you don't have to mess with trying to do the Docker file stuff. But yeah, let me know if you run into anything.
Any other questions? All right.
Thanks, Jake. Oh, I hope I'm really big again. Yes, I can see
You're big
myself.
now.
This is so weird. I'm talking to me. Okay.
I'll fix
Sweet. Thank
that.
you. No, that's okay. Yeah, no, I can see y'all. Thank you, Jake, and thank you, Justin. Because I can't help myself, Grant, yes, you can use local storage with Remix. The reason I didn't explain as well, the reason that you might not want to use it for like sessions and stuff is because it can only work in the browser. So you can't use that session in your backend, which is why something like a cookie is valuable, because you can read a cookie both from your client and from your server. That's why you often put like an authentication token in that. And I did link to the sessions documentation on Remix, which has like cookie sessions. You can use file-based sessions or memory sessions, Cloudflare, KV sessions, Arctable sessions. There's lots of different ways to do it. But of course, you know, your CMS or whatever you're using may have its own way that it wants to do sessions, and you're going to use that. So it just kind of depends what you're doing. But yeah, local storage, still great. You just have to know that you're on the browser whenever you're using local storage. You can't get it in your backend unless you're doing something crazy. I don't know.
I guess you could set up a function in your root. Of course, this is assuming that you're always going to be working on the browser, but that would read your local storage and push that as a header too, or as a, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But cookie will do that for you automatically.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could totally do that, but then you're like doing a weird double like fetch thing. Like you have to like get your route and then re-get it, and you just made a spa, but twice as hard. So, but yeah. Cool. Anyway, we can talk about cookies some other time. Thanks everybody for coming. Really appreciate it. We already have a sign up for next month, which I'm super excited about. Talking about how to do text messaging, SMS messaging with the Remix app. So that'll be super cool. Come for that. If you have any talk ideas, lightning talks or otherwise, reach out to me. There is a form on Meetup that I always post like in the big description and whatnot. You can also find me on Twitter. You can find me on email. It's just Brooks Lybrand. So my name just squished together as one word @gmail.com. Or I don't know, you can find me. It's not too hard. Discord, all those kind of fun things. Oh yeah, Grant posted, if you're looking for a job at HEB, come talk to Grant. Also, I know Justin is always hiring. I don't know if anyone else is hiring, but if you are, you should say, also I'm hiring, and talk to people. Or if you're looking for a job, talk to the people who are hiring. But yeah, since I'm not in person, I'm just going to leave it over to you guys and, you know, stay and enjoy yourselves or do whatever you want or get out of there. But hope to meet many of you in person next time, and thank you all for coming.